Welcome back to episode 2 of the TOSIG Talks podcast. I'm Kieran McCarthy and I'm here with Darragh.
Hello, everyone. How are we?
And this is week 2 of our little project, our little baby. I think the plan for these next 2 episodes is to kind of give whoever's listening, if anyone's listening, a kind of an insight to my own story and Darragh's own story. So today we're going to be going with Darragh's going to give us an insight into kind of his story and kind of learn more about him. And I think this is really valuable to be able to do for like the episodes to come down the line, because I think we're going to be giving context to the reasons that we're saying what we're saying. So I think in life and stuff, we're often going to have our own opinions because of what we've experienced in the past and what we've learned from. So I think if we're able to give people that are listening a better context to why we're saying what we're saying, I think that's going to be really valuable. So yeah, Darragh's going to go through in this episode kind of what he's been through, his childhood, and all of that stuff. And yeah, we're going to get a bit narcissistic for the next 2 hours. And I'm looking forward to learning more about you, Darragh. And yeah, I'm going to ask a few questions along the way. So yeah, hopefully you're looking forward to it as well.
Yeah, this is gonna be fun. It's gonna be fun. Gonna enjoy it. We won't get too deep. It's not a counselling session, but yeah, it'll be fun. It'll be fun.
Perfect. Yeah. All right. I'm looking forward to it. So I suppose, I mean, you spelt away wherever you want to start with, but I suppose there's no better place to start with. Kind of maybe take me all the way back. What was
All the
baby
way
Darragh like?
back,
Darragh in primary
baby
school.
Darragh.
Like what were you like as a kid? What were you like, and do you see yourself like back then? Like, do you still see yourself today like you were back then, or like how do you see any similarities or differences now?
Yeah, I mean, OG Darragh was probably different but similar in some ways. I mean, back in school, like I was obviously sports mad, like you and probably a lot of kids we grew up around. Football was the main one. I actually didn't start playing soccer until I was 10, which kind of shocks a few people because of what I'm doing now. But like, Ga was in my family, like Ga's in my blood, and no one
Good.
really in my family played soccer. And I was put into Ga in Sylvester's when I was like 5, and I hated it.
Did
I
you?
done it
Yeah.
for like a few months, and I said I'm never going back there again. And I had, I think I had a year off, and I went back to Ga then.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, like I said, primary school was just straight up sports. Like, honestly, life was great back then. Like, I don't think we realized there was no worries, there was no issues. It was just go to school, mess around with the lads, go kick a football around all day, and like
Mm-hmm.
life was good.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I really had no issues growing up. Like, luckily, I was never bullied or any of that. I don't have a sob story like that.
Yeah.
Um, but like I said, yeah, football was just the main thing. And you know, it was always my dream to become a professional soccer player. Like, from the age of probably 13, 14, I had this dream that I wanted to do it. And I think I started with Portmarnock. Um, and my mom will kill me, but I started with Portmarnock because she didn't think I would do well if I went to Malahide, because they're
No
very,
way. Is that
like,
true? Is it?
very strong. Yeah.
Right.
So
So you've just indirectly called me shit at football because I was on your team and
yeah.
you joined. So fuck you.
No, she didn't think I was gonna do well at Malahide because of how kind of strong they are.
Mm.
Um, so I went for Marnick and started on the C team like everyone else, and eventually worked my way up. Signed for Belvedere, which is probably one of the biggest clubs, schoolboy in Dublin, and then
What age was that
from
at?
there, uh, so I was probably 14, no, 15, I'd say. I played for the NDSL in the Kennedy Cup, which is like this massive tournament in Ireland. It's probably not that big anymore, but back in the day, it was kind of the best place to show yourself against the best
Mm-hmm.
players in the whole country. And I played quite well in that, and I had a few kind of teams interested in. I picked Belvedere. It was probably one of the best teams in the country at that stage. They had a few Ireland internationals. Troy Parrott was there, and it was when I went there and realized, like, I'd played at Portmarnock my whole life. I was always probably the best player there. Not trying to sound like I'm big man, but like I probably was.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, I knew I was too. And then when I went there and I'm looking at these boys and I'm like, fuck, I'm nowhere near them. It was scary. It was weird. And it was the best thing for me to do because I feel like definitely when you feel like you're the best, you're in the wrong room. You need to
Mm-hmm.
go to somewhere else and become someone else because if I would have stayed at Portmarnock, I would have been stagnant and I would never have achieved what I've achieved because I would have you just been the best, you know.
Mm-hmm.
And then when I went to Belvedere and I was probably one of the worst, but I was given a chance. I was
Mm-hmm.
like, yeah, I need to get better. I need to get better at this, at this, at this, and I did. And went to Drogheda after that in the League of Ireland, which is a big step. Probably I went there full of confidence, and I had kind of 6 months where I felt like I was the best player in this Drogheda team. I jumped up like 2 levels, but I was still believed that I was the best. I was the best football that I ever played. That 6 month period, I got all my highlights that fucking got me to America in that 6 month period. And I think it was a big step up because again I was playing against the best players in the country, and I was brought into a different room and a different environment of nearly full time football. Football was everything, in school, it was hard because it was school from 8 to 4. I had to leave for training at 5,
Mm-hmm.
so I had like half an hour to eat, to maybe even do a bit of homework. I went at 5, trained from 6 to 8, got home at 9, done homework for an hour, and then went to bed. And that was my
Mm-hmm.
life for 10 years nearly.
Yeah.
And it's funny because I actually I talk about this a bit, but like people always say like, oh, you're so lucky to be in the States. You're so lucky that you got a scholarship. And it's like, fuck, like they don't understand how much, let's say, I missed out on, or even you missed out on, just because of how much the sport takes up. Because people may only think like, oh, training was an hour long, but it took me an hour to get there, an hour to get back, and then I
Mm-hmm.
was thinking about it on the way there, and I was constantly thinking about it in the day. So I was eating the right things, and like that was my whole life, and I didn't have time for anything else. And on one hand, I didn't care about anything else. Um,
Do you ever
and
regret anything
honestly,
now,
go
like
on.
in like nowadays, today? Do you ever look back and be like, I would like, because I don't know about you, but from my perspective, yeah, I always would have seen like you're saying there, I would have been similar in the sense of the sacrifice would just was part of the game. It was just normal for me, and quickly people that I was friends with in primary school, secondary school, and stuff, as they go down different paths and start maybe going out more and stuff, and they're trying to get you to go out and whatever, and it's just like not sacrifice. It's just normal.
Mm.
Do you ever regret or wish that you could have been more like that, or do you feel like it was all worth it, or how do you feel surrounding the sacrifices
Mm.
that you made when you were like a kid and a teenager?
It's interesting because I probably want to talk about this more in depth in maybe a specific episode,
Mm-hmm.
because it's like, where did this drive come from? Like, where
Mm.
did this? No one told me that I had to do this. No
Mm-hmm.
one told me that I had to sacrifice my probably childhood. Like realistically, we didn't have a childhood in the sense that we grew up like a normal childhood because of how dedicated and how focused on this one goal I was. Do I regret it? Absolutely not. Because knowing what I know now, like I wouldn't be the person I am now without all that sacrifice.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like in the grand scheme of things, that sacrifice is gonna probably mean little and like less and less as I get older, because I'm gonna realize I'm gonna have to sacrifice a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but again, it's what you want to sacrifice. It's I wanted to sacrifice the drinking and the partying and whatever and the having a good time to achieve a goal that when I achieved that goal, I've learned a lot more and I've experienced a lot more than that one night on the beach. You know what I mean? And don't get me wrong, there were nights where I would go to the beach and I would be there sober, and it'd be like, what are you doing or whatever. And eventually, I won't lie, eventually it did get to a point where people weren't even offering me a drink, or people weren't even offering me, or if I didn't even go out, it was like, oh, whatever, he's training. Like it wasn't a big deal towards the end of it. Because
Mm-hmm.
I think maybe at Belvedere and Portmarnock, it was a big deal. Like, oh, you're still, playing for Portmarnock and you're not having a drink on a Friday or Saturday. But then when I got to Drogheda, it was like, okay, like he's playing in League
Everyone's
of
doing it.
Ireland, like, yeah, you want to achieve this thing, you're gonna have to sacrifice something. So, um, I definitely think having that goal throughout my childhood was massive, and it was so important because again, I learned so much, and I'm grateful for all the experiences that came out of it. Um, but honestly, towards the end of football, like I realized how much my time in Ireland with football, I realized how much my identity was tied to being a footballer,
Mm-hmm.
and that was a hard thing to deal with because I I when was it? It was March 2020 or February 2020. Um,
Just before COVID.
was yeah, it was the week before COVID that I tore my hamstring for the first time. Remember, we were doing like sprint testing. We had like a 5 minute warm up, and it was like a max sprint. I was like looking like, surely we're not warm enough to be sprinting here. We had like the gates, the track, like
Electronic
with our
gates, yeah.
trackers on and everything. Yeah,
Mm-hmm.
I was like, fuck, all right, well, I'll give this a good go and I'll see what time I can get. And I was coming off a high, like I felt really good, and boom, popped the hammy, and it was like what you see on a football pitch. You pull up and you fucking roll around, and I knew straight away it was a bad one. And then a week later, the world shut down for 6 months, so I had no real, I had no football, obviously, but I had also this injury that I didn't know how to heal, and I didn't have any access to physios for at least 8 weeks because of the lockdowns and stuff, and
Mm-hmm.
that really fucked me up because my hamstring didn't heal properly because I didn't train it properly. And it was then for probably the next year and a half till I came over here, because I didn't play that much football. I was just injured all the time, and I could
Mm.
never, get in a groove of like, yeah, I'm getting back here. It was always 3 4 weeks, and then boom, it'd go again, or I'd feel a niggle somewhere else. And it was that constant like stop start. It was so draining. Like mentally, it was so draining. I was in a terrible place mentally, and yeah, it was. I kind of knew that towards the back end, I was like, obviously, this dream of becoming a professional player playing in the Premier League was like slowly diminishing because of all the boys, even who were going over to England or
Mm-hmm.
who I was playing against, and like I knew I wasn't as good as them anymore because of the injuries and because wasn't training as well. So yeah, it was a tough time. Honestly, it was a tough time, and no one really knew. I think again, like we've spoken about, young lads are afraid to to talk about their feelings, and
Mm-hmm.
uh, again, I was meant to be this big football player who had his everything sorted, and he was going away, and that wasn't the case. And I think when
Did that bring
I
about
when
a
I
lot of pressure or stress? Like how you say like you were meant to be, like who says like that comes across to me as if that's something that like that's an internal pressure that you've made up in your mind that like you're meant to be this, like as if people are expecting it of you because you've been chatting about it to the lads in school or something like. So it like, yeah, where was that coming from, and did that cause you a lot of kind of stress? You're saying you're in a bad place mentally. Was that kind of the root of it, or where was that coming from?
yeah, I think you're right. Like there was immense internal pressure that I
Mm-hmm.
was putting on myself, but there was I don't really fall to external pressure. Other people's opinions of me don't really bother me. So like, if I told you that I was going to do this and I didn't do it, like, and you think bad of me, like, honestly, I don't really care. Um,
That's great.
and but it was more so the internal pressure of, I told myself I was going to do this, and my body's letting me down. Well, I thought it was my body that was letting me down. Like, that was what was killing me. Every day it was killing me. And yeah, it was a build up of just thoughts and emotions and not being able to express myself in a way, because, like, think about it, it's the same probably when you step on the tennis court. Like, all your other fucking thoughts and feelings and emotions just go away as soon as the whistle goes for me or whatever. It's
Mm-hmm.
like, that was my outlet on how to express myself, or how to, obviously, the hormonal effects of it and all that stuff. And I think when that's taken away from you, and when it's your whole life for 16, 17 years, and then it's taken away from you just in an instant, fuck, it was a tough time.
Mm.
Um, and it was towards the back end of that, when I realized probably I wasn't going to go to England, that I was like, yeah, maybe the US is a good option. Obviously, I'd seen a lot of people who would go over and then play really well for 4 years and get a contract, which was my goal at the start.
Mm.
My goal was realistically to go to spend 2 years in one school, 2 years in a bigger, better school, and then get drafted and play in the pros over here.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and again, that was probably just like bias and confidence in myself that I was going to be able to do it. But I also think maybe I was sort of running away from people, or my thoughts, and um, that's why I kind of went to the States, to have a fresh start, to start
Mm.
completely new, to meet new people, and that is what kind of how America came into my mind. School was never really like, I didn't really want to go to college in Ireland. I don't know.
Really,
Did
yeah.
you want to go to college?
Um, I think for me, the whole idea. I mean, we'll get into this more in the later episodes or whatever. But
Yeah.
I think in Ireland, I don't know if it's the same for football. I suppose it's not really, because you could still potentially play league. You could have played League of Ireland or whatever. But for tennis, it's either you go to university in Ireland and then your tennis is kind of done, because there's no competition. Like, tennis is, and I'm sure I'll talk about this for a lot, but tennis is such a like poverty sport in Ireland. Like, there's no money put into it.
Mm.
There's no funds or whatever. So it's basically played within 8 weeks during the summer, and then that's it. So unless you're playing in the summer, you're not playing tennis. So for me, I wanted to prolong my tennis career for as long as possible. I knew from a very young age that I wasn't going pro, so I knew that I could still. And in America, college tennis is quite a big thing, and college athletics is quite
Mm.
a big thing. So I knew that if I
Massive,
wanted
yeah.
to prolong my tennis career, I had to go somewhere else, and I couldn't stay in Ireland. So it wasn't a sense of I wanted to or not wanted to go to college in Ireland. It was more I wanted to keep playing tennis, and in order to do that, I had to go to America. So yeah,
Yeah.
it was tough, and I definitely I associate a lot with you when you're saying like it was part of your identity. Like, I think that's a massive thing with athletes, and I think young, like, and girls as well, but young lads in particular, that like people for the first 19 years of my life, when someone asked me like, oh, what are you into or whatever, sports. That's the only, like, that's the go-to, and I'm sure it was the same for you. Um, like, your identity is an athlete, you know. So for you, I can only imagine that was tough when you tear your hamstring in March or February of whatever 2020, and then that's taken away from you in a sense, and like then we're not even taken away from you, because I'm sure you're like, okay, well, I'm still going to get back playing, but that, like, uncertainty is a scary thing, and not knowing when you're going to be back fit to 100%, or when you're going to be strong again, or when you're going to be like, uncertainty is a scary thing, and when that brings into question your identity, that's a very scary thing. So yeah, I can imagine that that was a scary time for you.
And I think, yeah, obviously when I went to the States the first time, and it was a hard transition because I tore my hamstring again the first day of preseason, my freshman year.
Oh no way.
The other
Okay.
one. Yeah, the other one.
Fucking hell.
So it was hard being like one of the major things I had to deal with when I went to the States was I knew I was good,
Mm.
but no one in my old school knew I was good because
Mm-hmm.
I never played enough. I was always injured. I was always had this pain or niggle, and I could never give myself 100% to the sport and to the team. And it still kind of kills me to this day to know that people think that like it's not a massive issue, but like to know that they never seen what I was capable of doing.
Mm.
Um, and it was I spent so when I went over, I didn't play a lot, or I played a little bit that first season when I got back. Um, my minutes were very minuscule. Like I was maybe getting 5 minutes at the end of the game.
Okay.
You know, it's different here. Obviously, it's roll on, roll off. So it's kind of like maybe 5 minutes in the first half, 5 minutes at the end of the second half, and it's demoralizing, honestly.
Yeah, I'd say
Um,
so.
but I was in a good team. Like we were actually very good the first year. I think I got like 3 assists in my first season, which was pretty good, like considering of the minutes I played.
Yeah.
And
Also something
then,
I'm sure you're not used to. Like you said, you were like Portmarnock, you were the best player. Belvo, you were up there with like top players, Belvo, and then Drada, you said that that's where you got your best highlights and you really performed well there. So not only are you coming to America and you're in a like I know you've said before that like the Americans over here they play a different style of football, so you have to get used to that. You have to get used to living away from home. But then yeah, like I can only imagine that kind of that this is the first time that you've been put in that situation where you're not almost like well you may be but obviously you're injured or whatever but that's kind of that first time that that's been brought into question. You've always been coming up to America, it's always seemed as if you've been the best of where you've surrounded yourself for the most part. And I'd say that was a difficult thing to get used to. That then having to manage that, going from playing 90 minutes the majority of your matches to then playing 10 and 5 minutes per half. You know, I'd say that's fucking tough. Like,
oh, it was hard. I can't lie, it was very hard, especially coming from the place I was in with all the
mm,
injuries and then having this on top of it. It was really
yeah,
hard, and I actually did struggle a lot. Um, that first year was very, very tough. That summer I came home. I wasn't in a good place mentally at all. No one knew, and I tried my best to get back fit again for that summer. Didn't really give it my all. Same thing happened when I went back for my uh second my third semester, my second fall semester. I think
mm-hmm.
I done the hamstring a few weeks into preseason again, and it was like, oh, Darragh's injured again. Like shock, you know.
mm,
That was hard. Um, at that season, I didn't play it at all. It was annoying because I played. I didn't play any games for the first team. No one actually really knows this. I don't think. Didn't play any games for the first team, and I played. I was gonna not play because I was gonna redshirt. So
Mm-hmm.
basically, a redshirt is when you, for the audience, when you don't play for a season because of an injury, you can get an extra season of eligibility when you finish. Because we only get 4 years, so I could have got a fifth year, which could have even got a master's. And I was 50-50 with that. And my coach at the time told me, yeah, if you want, get a few minutes with the second team, and then we'll bring you up and play you with the first team when you're ready. So it was 50-50. If I played for the second team, I lost my eligibility. So it was like, do you know what? I'll give this a go. I feel good at the moment. I'm going to just enjoy it. And played with the second team for a few games and then never even got the chance with the first team. So that was a hard moment, honestly. And I was a bit sick of football. I was a bit annoyed. I was a bit down. Um, and I realised, after that season, we had a pretty good season. A few of my mates decided to transfer to bigger schools because they done really well. And I felt like it was the right time to try something new.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and like I said, that was probably one of the lowest moments in my life when I realized I wasn't going to be a professional footballer.
Mm-hmm.
And I was injured and I was going to have to transfer to somewhere that my plan was obviously go somewhere big. But I was like, with my highlights and my stats, I'm not going somewhere good, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I came home that Christmas after the fall semester. And that is where, everything changed for me.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um, I remember I it was New Year's Eve and I was buzzing because like I hadn't really gone out like over the Christmas period or whatever, and I was like, yeah, New Year's. I think there was a party on. Someone was having a party. Who was having a party? Someone was having a party. But I was buzzing. I was like, yeah, I'm going and I'll just relax. I'll see the lads. I'll see all the birds that I know from the area,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I got fucking sick. Like I got so sick. I got some sort of, I don't know, flu or something. I was in the bed for like 3 days. And I was snapping because I couldn't go to this party.
Yeah. Yeah.
But those 3 days, I sat in the bed and I
Mm-hmm.
journaled for 3 days, filled up this fucking copybook, and that was the moment when I really woke up. And I talk about it like a wake up moment, because I was asleep before then, and now I'm awake. So it was that moment when I journaled for those days that like just everything changed for me.
What does being asleep
And
mean?
that
What do you
I
mean by
think
you were asleep
yeah,
beforehand?
yeah, yeah. Being asleep is kind of like you kind of just like waltzing through life. Like things don't really phase you, but like maybe you're down. I was just constantly down about things, and I didn't know how to get out of the slump. I didn't know that there was people who weren't in a slump, or that I was just like it was like there was just a dome over me. And I think
Mm-hmm.
there's a lot of people who are like that. They just live day to day. They don't really have any goals or any mission. It's just like every day is the same. Every day is a bit shit, and that's just how it is. When that moment when I woke up, I was like, yeah, every day's been shit for the last 2 years. Why? And how can I make it not shit? That was literally all it was. And that journaling session, like I talk about journaling a lot because I think it's amazing. And I think you do that as well every now and again.
Mm-hmm.
But it's that was just like I wrote down every single one of my thoughts. I didn't just like find a journal template, but I wrote down all my thoughts for 2 days, and I got everything out there. And that was really the start of everything that has come in the last year and a half. When I went back then, I think we talked about this in the last episode, my goal was to start something hard and stick to it.
Mm-hmm.
And uh, I wanted to start posting because I was transferring. I wasn't allowed training with the team, and um, I
So
just
you
decided
had
that I wanted
chosen
to
to
do.
transfer after the first semester of
Yeah,
your second year. Is that you? So you talk to the coaches and be like, "I'm out here after the end of this
yeah,
year," or okay.
yeah. So it was basically 3 semesters. So it was
Mm-hmm.
2 fall semesters, and then after that fall semester, I was like, yeah, I'm going to transfer so I could spend the spring chatting to coaches and stuff.
Okay. Okay.
Um, and so I wasn't allowed to train with the team then because I was leaving. And I was like, do you know what? I'm going to fill my time doing something. I want to do
Mm-hmm.
something else. So I was 50-50. I was going to learn to code, funnily enough, or edit, edit videos. I was like, I downloaded both softwares and I was like, fuck it, I'll just do this editing because the coding's too hard. the and yeah, learned how to edit in like 2 weeks. Just became obsessed with like angles and editing. And again, it was that stage where I didn't really give a fuck what people thought of me or whatever. So I just started posting. And originally I was gonna post under like just Darragh, like as
Mm-hmm.
Darragh. And my dad actually said to me, he was like, you need to build a brand. I was like, fuck off, dad. Like you don't know what you're talking about. Like
Yeah.
and everyone is posting on their own accounts, blah blah blah. And thought about it more, journal about it, obviously, and decide, nah, you know what, I'll build a brand because the brand is bigger than me, you know. And if there's a message that people can associate with, that's even better because then I can not be associated
Mm-hmm.
with the brand. So I thought about all these words, thought about Greek words and like just cool fancy words like Nike and like,
Yeah.
you know, just cool brands. You know, it didn't need to be a word that people knew. And that's kind of where TOSIG came from. Like I don't really remember. I think I was in my bedroom one day and was like, what am I doing here? And he was like, well, I'm just gonna start, like regardless of whatever. I was like, start. Think about it in Spanish and think about it in other languages in Greek. And I was like, what TOSIG? Like what that's Irish, isn't it? And then
Mm-hmm.
I changed it over to I made it like more Americanized. Like I took
Yeah.
out the A
Yeah.
and the H, so people would be able to say it. They still butcher it though. I can't lie.
I'm sure.
Um,
Yeah.
but but that was the start of everything because like again, start like that was when I realized like I'm in a bad place. I want to be here. So what do I have to do to get to that stage? And the only thing I had to do was to start, you know, and that was again another massive wake up moment for me. And started posting online on Instagram. Looking back now, of course, the cringy as fuck, and that's why they're all hidden. Nobody can see them.
Yeah.
But it was cool in a sense because I didn't get like a massive following, but I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot about the skill of editing, about social media. And I also realized I learned how to write. I was writing a newsletter every week at the time. And I was like opening myself up to a lot of experiences and a lot of criticism, but also opinions and people. And I think like this is where you come into it. Like I posted for like 5 6 months straight, and you know I developed the skill. I learned how to talk online, learn how to talk on with a camera in front of me, and it was me opening myself up to that led me to meeting a lot of different people. Because again, when you step outside your comfort zone, like people, at first people will knock you, and especially Irish people, I feel like they're very negative in that sense that
Yeah.
they will knock you when you want to try something new. But then I think there are people, especially in Ireland, that are doing things and maybe they're afraid to share it on social media, but they're growing a business or they're growing their own brand or whatever. And when you do that too, they want to associate with you.
Mm-hmm.
And you know, it was that summer I went home. I was there for probably 8 weeks at home, and I met up with a load of people, a load of cool people like you, like there's a few people that run businesses or even League of Ireland footballers, but I never would have met them if I hadn't have opened myself up to the criticism or opened myself up
Yeah.
to talking about the things that I wanted to talk about. And it was me doing that that really, I really realized how important the brand is, but how important the things that I'm talking about is.
Yeah.
Um,
Definitely.
you know, mental health was the whole reason why I started TOSIG. So I'm going to talk about it more because there are millions of people and thousands of people in Ireland who struggle with their mental health and are afraid to speak up and speak out. When the only reason I got any way better, and of course I'm not better now, I'm still on a journey, but the only way I got to where I'm at now is by just starting to talk about the things that no one else is talking about. And yeah, it was a cool summer that year because of how people reacted. It was a lot of positive reaction to what I was doing,
Yeah.
which was surprising to me. Honestly, I thought it was going to be quite negative. Like, again, who's this fella? I think he is like whatever, posting like he's some big fucking social media star,
Mm-hmm.
and I had like 300 followers. But it was like it was yeah, the skill. I learned a lot of skills that year, and especially then when I went back. So that was yeah, January 23,
Mm-hmm.
and I came home. Oh wait, no, that was 22, and then I went back. I think now maybe it was 23. Yeah. So then went home and really wanted to strengthen my hamstrings when I was home. Like really focus on that.
Is this during the summer now?
this is last summer now, so we're
Okay.
kind of up to date,
Mm-hmm.
and continuously posting on social media, posting about what I was doing.
To get back on track, I'll talk about what you've just gone over, because I think it's really important. I think it's something that is one of the most valuable things that anyone will hopefully take from this sort of thing, is that your vulnerability in starting TOSIG speaks a fucking million words. Like the courage to be able to put yourself out there and be vulnerable brings about so many more positives than it'll ever bring negatives. So, look, you can tell me, I don't know how much hate or whatever you've received from people, or being like I know it's always a hesitant thing to start something like this, because you're like, oh well, like you said, people back home would be like, well, who the fuck does this fella think he is? Like, I understand that, but you probably haven't even, like, I don't know, you can tell me, but I imagine you haven't come across too many people in person that have come up to you and be like, and have said that exact thing. So I think the the on the flip side of that, the benefits that being vulnerable and putting yourself out there does is, when you're vulnerable with someone, that other person automatically and just naturally brings down their own walls and their barriers, because it's simple psychology. If someone is vulnerable with you, you're more likely to be vulnerable with them and open up to them. And I think that that's when we really get valuable conversations with each other. And I think that's when people can really, really communicate and have productive conversations. So maybe it takes a brave person like yourself, a courageous person that's not afraid to take the first step to kind of be that leader. We need that, so then other people can feel as if they're in a safe space and can also share about their feelings and whatever. It doesn't have to be feelings, it could be anything. So I think, yeah, it's like, yeah, props to you for being able to do that and start that, because I think you're doing something that is probably a lot more important than you might even realize, because having that vulnerability, having that like courage to do it first is great. Like it was tough for me to like say that I wanted to come on and do this, but like I was talking to you, obviously I know we said this in the last podcast, like I wanted to start a podcast for a long time, but I don't know if I ever really would have had the courage to do it by myself. And because you've been vulnerable and you've kind of set that path previously with TOSIG, it's been a lot easier for me to now hop on board and do this with you. So yeah, I think that vulnerability is really important, and I think you've had the courage to do that with TOSIG so far.
Yeah, well, I'm glad we can have these conversations now, because again, I think especially with you, like if I never posted, you probably would never have texted me,
Yeah, exactly.
and and I think that's mad, because again, I've built relationships over the past year with people who I probably would never have thought about, just because of a simple Instagram post or just because
Mm-hmm.
of a simple story on Instagram. And it's like, and again, I'm not saying that I'm this massive preacher, or I'm a massive social media star, because I don't want to be either.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I am just, again, living my life the way I want to live my life, and I want to talk about things that are actually meaningful and have and deep conversations with genuine people who are interested. And if you're not interested, then go, like, fair play, like, do what you want to do.
Mm-hmm.
But if you do want to have an interesting conversation, like, and you do want to improve your life or to improve the situation you're in, like, just start, like, just do it. And I think, again, Ireland, I think one thing that was massive about TUSIG was that I was not in Ireland. And it's funny saying that now, but it's like, I didn't have to, because again, like, there are a lot of Americans that would follow, but like
Mm-hmm.
most of the followers would be in Ireland, and not having to go to the shop and see someone who follows, or see someone who looks at the stories but doesn't follow me. Like, I think that was beneficial. And now I don't care about it, whatever. But at the start, knowing that 90% of the people that would see the content I wouldn't see for 6 months, it was great.
Do you think you would have had the courage to start TUSIG if you had gone to college in Ireland? Now, obviously, I think your paths would have been very different, and maybe that wake up moment and that moment of realization would have come later or at a different time. So who knows? This is all
Mm.
hypothetical. But could you have seen yourself doing something like this if you were in Ireland permanently?
Probably not.
Really?
No,
Yeah, that's
I don't know.
interesting, isn't it?
It's hard. I mean, it's hard to say. I think
Yeah.
again, I've grown up a lot. I'm a different person now from even the last year. Like I'm a completely different person in the last year.
Mm-hmm.
So it's hard to say. But I think, yeah, not having that face to face connection with people who were following and who were commenting was good for the start. But now I'm like, yeah, if you want to comment, like let's have a conversation. Like just text me or comment on
Mm-hmm.
the posts because I want to get people involved in this now. You know, where before maybe it was a bit kind of selfish in a way. I was just talking about my journey and learn how to grow on social media. But now I'm actually like really just talking about the message and like I don't really care about the numbers or care about the followers or like I said, the numbers on the screen. It's like if three people are actually impacted by this conversation or a video that I make or a story that I post and they text me, that's class. Like I
Mm.
posted a thing on my Instagram story last night, and it was like comparison is the thief of joy. It was one of the things I learned this week. And like three or four people just like replied
Yeah,
to the
man, that's
comment like
huge.
that's yeah, that's great. And it's like I was like, that's what I want to do. You know, I'm not trying to just say that I'm this fucking big bollocks like entrepreneur, like
Yeah.
all that shit. Like I'm just like talking about things that I want to talk about. And if you find them interesting, like great, like join the crew and you don't like fuck off, like
Yeah. Yeah.
you
Yeah.
know.
Yeah.
Um but yeah, that kind of brings me up to now. Like I'm kind of now I'm in a new school. Last season was the first season that I played with no injuries. Uh,
Congrats.
and thank you,
Only
mate.
took three
It was a
years.
massive one. Yeah. I didn't play a lot, like, but I was on the bench and I would play maybe 20 minutes a game. And it's like, again, it was that switch from I need to play here to become a professional footballer to I'm here in the States on a scholarship that I need to kind of enjoy every moment here.
Yeah.
And maybe again, this calls for another episode on its own, but that shift in pressure, there was no pressure for me, especially when I started posting. Like that internal pressure was just from me. There was no external pressure from the coach or from my family or from anyone. And then that summer again, and then this time, like I probably wasn't as fit as I needed to be. I probably wasn't pushing as hard to get in the squad because I was kind of just happy to go training every day and not be in pain,
Mm-hmm.
like selfishly.
Yeah, but I think
Um,
that's natural. Like I think, look, you've had it 2 years, and this isn't me trying to fucking blow smoke up your ass or whatever. But like you've had a tough 2 years. Like in fairness to you, so like to go from like yeah, don't feel shame or guilt for being like oh I could have done more, I could have been more fit coming into this season. Like you've had a rough 2 years. You need to cut yourself some slack for being able to. I think yeah, the goalpost now, of course, has to realign itself. And now I know you
mhm.
speak of wanting to be the fittest you've ever been by the time you get back in August or whatever. And I think that's the right move. But yeah, absolutely. Look, just enjoy being fit and enjoy having two intact hamstrings and then you can build from there, you
Just
know?
about. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It's mad. It is mad. And again, honestly, I'm a different person now, even to, of course, I'm always kind of looking back on the person that I was at that stage. And I think even in the since I've come back this time, I've changed a little
Hmm.
as well. Um, I think maybe 2023 was the year for me to kind of like just like journal and meditate and figure out my mind. It was kind of a bit, I don't want to say soft because it's super important to do all that. But 2024 has kind of been like an action year. Like I'm a bit more like determined, a bit more motivated. I'm kind of a bit more, I don't want to say dark either because that's a bit morbid. Like, but
Yeah.
I'm just like, something changed when I came back here this time. And Like I'm in a
Go
rural
into a
town in
little bit more
Iowa.
depth on what you mean by
Yeah,
that. Like what's so this darkness? Explain to me what that means.
yeah. I'm in a very small town in Iowa, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now Iowa itself, no, there's not much going on here. Like
Yeah.
there's probably two towns in the whole country, in the whole state that there's shit happening, and
Yeah.
it's not this one. I'll tell you that. Um, but I don't mind it because I sit at this computer for a lot of the day. You know, I go to class, I eat, and I train, and I come back here. And some people listening might think there's something seriously wrong with that kid. Like, what is he doing? And I think part of it is like, yeah, maybe I'm not like living the college lifestyle or whatever, going to parties and stuff. There isn't parties here anyway, but I I realized this year that I wanted to grow. I wanted to grow TOSIG into something big as well. Partly why we're doing the podcast, partly why I'm posting on YouTube, posting a bit more on Instagram, excuse me, and things like that. But I also wanted to just like do more. And I realized that I actually wrote a little piece on this last night, but I realized that I was kind of like always talking about this thing that I was building, like this business or this brand or the thing that I wanted to do in the future. And I was never really like actually doing it, like doing the
Yeah. It was
work
all
that
talk,
needed to
talk,
be done.
talk.
It was all talk. And talk is great. Like I think you need to have goals, you need to have a mission and blah blah blah. But I found I was never really actually taking steps towards that massive thing. And like I said, the meditating is great, the journaling is great, but they kind of don't really push you forward. They kind of just like
Mm-hmm.
bring you out of the past and bring you out of what you experienced. And it's definitely necessary because you cannot go forward unless you kind of figure out what happened in your past. But yeah, this year when I came back, um, my focus changed a little to being like, let's fucking go here. You know, my training changed. I've been training more intensely. Like I said, my plan is to be as fit as possible come August.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I obviously I watch a lot of content and stuff like that, and I think the self help stuff is great. And again, we're kind of falling into that trap of self help, all that, whatever. But
Yeah.
I think I realized that I was like watching too much stuff and like listening, and I wasn't actually doing the work. And this year I decided that, nah, you know what, we're actually going to graft here. And that's partly why I don't go out a lot. I don't really have a lot to do here. I just come here and I sit on my computer and clickety clack away and train all day. And it's kind of it's a bit psycho. Like honestly, it's a bit mad.
Mm-hmm.
Um, there isn't a lot of people that I speak to because there just isn't the type of people to have the conversation that say we're going to have.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I understood that like in our life we're going to go through seasons, and this season from January to May this year is just grind. There's not really much time for play. There's not really much time for kind of sitting around and doing nothing and watching Netflix. Like I really wanted to just devote this time to building something big. And, you know, I'm starting to see a bit of numbers on the YouTube, the Instagram. I'm not trying to grow on Instagram, but I'm getting more feedback. We're obviously starting a podcast, like, which again is fucking cool. So
Mm-hmm.
it's like learning all these skills is great, but then implementing them is the most important thing. And that's really what I wanted to do this year. It's kind of sometimes I find it hard to explain what's actually going on inside my own brain.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and maybe over time I'll get better at it.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's just some sort of drive or some sort of like dark energy or something inside that's kind of like pushing me towards this thing. Um,
And is that like
and
a is you say dark energy? Is that
mm,
like a fear of what might happen if you don't succeed, or is it a if this doesn't go well, I'm gonna have to face the demons within my own brain that I'm not as good as I thought I might be, or like when you say dark energy, is dark energy necessarily a negative thing, or do you associate it with like I think it comes down to the individual. I think, in
Mm.
my opinion, if you're able to harness what you seem to be describing as dark energy, I think it can be a good thing. But I think a lot of people aren't able to control that dark energy and can let it kind of like over consume them. I think with maybe what you're, and you can go into more depth about what you think about dark energy, but I think it's almost like it's a bit of like the way I see it in kind of simple terms is like a fire. And I think dark energy, and this is like anything, I suppose, any type of emotion. And with dark energy, I think you can either let it, if say like a fire in a house, you can either let
Yeah,
this dark energy heat up the house and like just go on the fireplace and whatever, make the house like nice and warm, or you can let it burn the house down, and you're completely fucked then because you've got no house if you let the
yeah.
fire burn it down. So I think you have to, there's one or two ways in which you can use something like dark energy, if I'm kind of picking up it correctly what you're talking about. But maybe you can
Hmm.
go into a bit more depth of what it actually, what is that driving factor of dark energy for you.
Yeah, yeah. I love that. Like, I I think it's a positive thing,
Interesting.
and I think like one of my favorite creators at the moment is a guy called Zach Pogrob. I don't know if you've seen him. He
No.
talks about obsession and how a lot of people would have negative connotations to the word obsession. I love it. Like, and looking back now, I've always been sort of obsessed. Like, I was obsessed with becoming a professional footballer. It was the only thing in my life that really mattered, was
Mm.
becoming this thing or achieving this goal. And now my obsession has switched a little to kind of building a brand and building a business. Like and I think you associate yourself with people who are on the same level as you. I feel like, and sometimes people want to be like you, or sometimes, but you always want to be like someone else, you know. And right now, like I said, that dark energy is like this buildup of like desire and motivation and discipline that is there, and it's like gonna be this massive thing that is just growing and growing and growing. And the more you feed it, the more you win, the more things you do every single day, the better it's going to be, and the more of that energy is gonna come. And I
That's so
think,
interesting
yeah, it's
because
it's it's something that I actually have talked about a lot, and I
I'm
want to talk about it
buzzing.
more.
I'm buzzing that we're doing this podcast now, and you can keep going now. Sorry for interrupting you, but I'm so excited that we're doing these two episodes and just this podcast in general because, say, on this dark matter and obsession, I think I would hold kind of opposite opinions to what you're
Hmm.
talking about now. So I'm buzzing now, like, and we'll go into that in kind of my episode now, whenever that
Yeah, yeah,
happens
yeah.
or whatever. But I would have always associated obsession with something that relates to low self esteem. So for me,
Okay.
anyway, my obsession, and I think this is similar with a lot of, I've done a bit of research on it and listened to a lot of people, and for obsessed mind, for how I relate to it, and I think this is my mind's going fucking crazy here because I think this is great
Lovely.
because
Come
I think
on.
a lot of people are going to be able to like associate to either you or me or kind of a mix of
Yeah.
both, and I think this is why this podcast is going to be good. But for my obsessed mind, and I'll go into this more in my episode, but I completely and utterly was obsessed with kind of getting to America and with tennis and all that stuff as I was growing up. But it was absolutely coming from a place of holy fuck, if I fail now, I'm gonna have to live with the fact that I'm either a failure or not good enough, or people when I see them out are gonna be like, you were supposed to go to America and why aren't you going there? Like
Hmm.
my obsession was coming from a place of complete and utter fear. Complete and utter
Yeah.
fear.
Wow.
Um Now look, I objectively not necessarily a bad thing. Like if you're able, like I've been able to harness it now in recent times, and
Hmm.
I'm still, if you look at it on paper, I'm still in America. I'm still like on a scholarship, whatever, in the States. So objectively, it's a success. But
Yeah.
for the first few years of that obsession, it was coming from a place of like, I'm not good enough, you know? So I'm going to have to work harder than every single person that I come across because I'm not good enough. I'm not as good as you. I put you on a
Hmm.
pedestal and all that sort of stuff. So anyway, you can keep going now, but I just think that that's great that we have different views of
Yeah.
kind of obsession, because I think that's
Yeah.
valuable, you know.
Yeah, like again, I'm talking about this a lot more because I think there's a dark energy and a light energy, And
Mm-hmm.
like I said, maybe it's a specific podcast. We should be writing all these down.
Yeah.
But uh, yeah, the dark energy. I think you're right. There is a, a part of it that is probably low self esteem, or I think Hormozy talks about like being pushed or being pulled. Like
Mm-hmm.
who's pushing you, or who's driving you, or who's pull. Is there something that's pulling you? And I think, when you look at some of the most successful individuals, like I'm thinking like Steve Jobs or like Ronaldo or like Michael Jordan, like all these people, like they're different. There's something about them that just like they wanted to win, like regardless of what people thought of them, or like Steve Jobs, like fuck, he probably one of the most revolutionary men in the last 20, 30 years. Everyone walks around with an iPhone. We're both
Mm-hmm.
recording these on IMAX, and it's like there was something different about him. And yeah, of course, I think there's a level that you can get to, because like no one wanted to work for Steve Jobs because of how obsessed he was.
Yeah.
And I don't think I'm as obsessed as Steve Jobs just yet. So I think there's a case to learn how to balance the dark and the light, which is
Mm.
something that I'm trying to figure out at the moment. But I think again, you'll go through seasons of your life where certain energy will like take over. And right
Mm-hmm.
now, the darkness. But again, I think I need to word it differently, because it's not darkness, it's not morbid, it's not death. It's just like
Yeah.
this like burning desire of like success, of
Mm-hmm.
just like this motivator that's constantly there inside you, that you can't sleep because of it, and you're constantly thinking about it. And every action that you do is towards this one thing,
Mm-hmm.
because of that energy that's inside of you. And again, maybe it's not really the fear of failure, because I think, as I've learned, like a lot of the failures that I have experienced, they haven't actually been failures, they've been just lessons in a larger picture.
Yeah.
And again, when the story is like, and the journey is like the best part, and these ups and downs are what teaches you, and what gives you this sense of um achievement, because you overcame this obstacle to achieve this one thing. If life
Mm-hmm.
was just easy and then you just won at the end, like it's gonna be a bit boring.
I'd be
Do you know what I
fucked.
mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, when I have this desire to be great and be successful, like it's hard for people to really associate with you.
Mm-hmm.
And it's funny that, like, again, we're having this conversation that maybe you think differently, because there aren't a lot of people that think like Steve Jobs.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there aren't a lot of people who were as good as basketball as Michael Jordan or Ronaldo, for a reason, because people think they're a bit nuts, but they're nuts because there was something driving them, and there was some sort of energy inside them that said, fuck what everyone else thinks. I'm gonna win. I'm gonna be successful. I'm gonna do this one thing.
Mm.
And I sort of feel like that is kind of taking over me right now, a little bit. Like I'm not
It's
on that
interesting that you
level just
say.
yet.
It's interesting that you say right now, though. Like, if you look back at the conversation that we've just had, and you can now enlighten me and tell me more, but it
Hmm.
seems as if this isn't the first time that this has been like this. You talk like let's look back at your secondary school experience. You did this, like you've done this before. You've been completely and utterly obsessed before. Your dream of
Mm.
being a pro footballer. You just said that you got up at whatever school 8 to 4, get a bit of homework done, and that was your
Mm.
life for the whole of secondary school. So this isn't the first time that this has come around. I think apart from the couple of years block that you had, that maybe you were a bit stagnant and a bit, you kind of plateaued a little bit, and you were talking about your struggles and stuff before TOSIG came around. I think this isn't the first time this has happened. I think this is a pretty consistent behavior with you, that you kind of like you'll hook onto something, and you're
Hmm.
gonna put your complete and utter full focus into into that specific goal. So I think this is a
Hmm.
consistent
Hmm.
behavior with you. It comes across anyway that, like, once you have your mind set to something, like, you will not stop at any cost to
Mm.
achieve that
And I
thing.
think to tie it all back into kind of why we started, I feel like you're right, but I was asleep doing it the last two times.
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm awake, in a sense, it is harder but easier. Like
Yeah, I love
it's
that.
a weird kind of feeling because I'm aware of this obsession that's inside me and this drive now.
Mm-hmm.
So I can harness it to benefit me, and I can
Yeah, that's
use
great.
it to when I don't want to get up early, when I don't want to go to the gym, but like there's just this something that is pushing me to do it. Where before if I didn't really want to go, kind of didn't, that goal was just kind of there. It was just in the back of my mind, and I think I was obsessed, but not as obsessed as I needed to be to become a professional footballer.
Okay.
But right now, as I learn how to understand my mind and how it works, and how to express it, because again, there's probably like 80% of the people that listen to this podcast won't be able to really relate to what I'm
Mm-hmm.
saying.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's fine, because again, we need people in the world that don't relate. We need winners, we need losers. I'm not saying I'm a winner or loser, whatever, but like this sort of thing is not present in a lot of different people. And I think I don't want to sound like I'm this big man. Like again, we're going to talk about this a lot. Like we're not trying to sound like we know what we're doing. But I'm just like
Mm-hmm.
telling you how I feel. Do you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not scared of people thinking I'm a maniac, because they kind of am. Like, but um, yeah, like I said, this fucking thing is just pushing me to be whatever. And success is kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Subjective. Like success is subjective. What is success? What success for you is different to me. Um, so yeah, I don't think we can really compare. And like I said, comparison is the thief of joy. I compare too much to people who are ultra successful. But I like to look at, you know, like I don't know, have you seen the Steve Jobs movie? It's great.
No.
It's And again, it was that whole thing of like looking back on, well, he just started. He didn't know how to build a computer, or he didn't know how to build a fucking iPhone when iPhones didn't exist. But it was
Mm-hmm.
like he just started. And I think that's the whole idea of TOSIG, and the whole idea, we could probably wrap up on this, the whole concept of what I'm doing and what this podcast is for, and what me posting on social media is for. Because in my mind, I know that success is going to come at some stage.
Mm-hmm.
But having this to look back on for me, but also maybe for other people, to see like where he started there. And he was thinking like a psychopath when he was 22, you know, and he was talking about this thing that he feels now that he also feels when he's 30 or 40. But you can look back and see it. And I think that will hopefully inspire people, and hopefully will drive me, because again, I'm talking about it on the internet. I'm
Yeah.
exposing myself, and creating that internal and external pressure. And yeah, the more I do it, the more I talk about it, the more I just kind of get um more energy and more drive to be successful, whatever success means.
Love it. Yeah, I think it comes across as it's more, this is a more kind of permanent or long lasting energy that you have now, or like a more driving energy that you've had before. And I think that can only come down to self awareness and understanding of how you feel and interpret things that you are feeling. Because I think, like you said, you were probably asleep or blind to what you were doing. It was kind of just, you were just following footsteps or like doing what you thought was right. You don't really understand. I think that's, look, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing. I think that's just something that happens as we grow up. Like you were fucking like 14, 15, 16 years old when you were in that first stage, you know? You can't expect yourself to be fucking self-aware to the max and understand that you're on this journey or whatever. And I think it's just a thing of growing up. Um, and I think, yeah, I think naturally you've like, you've kind of come on this journey and you're more self-aware now. And I think that's the reason as to why it comes across as this is more beneficial to you than it ever has been before. This energy is more kind of important now than it ever has been. So yeah, no, it's good to hear.
Mm. I think again, it's finding that balance. Like, there's not a lot of balance in my life right now, and I think that's
Mm-hmm.
okay, because again, we go through the seasons. And I think maybe in the summer, I'll probably not have this burning desire to be, to build this thing. Maybe it'll be more kind of the light energy, where I'm interested in having conversations with people, and and talking and meeting new people, and you know, it'll have a different, because of the different season of my life, I'll have a different kind of outlook.
Mm-hmm.
And I think again that'll be cool to look back on and to see the different stages that I went through, the different stages that you go through as we grow and as we learn. Like, because we're exposing ourselves to, like, we're expediting our learning by just having these conversations. You know,
Mm-hmm.
you know, I didn't really think about the negative connotations or the negative aspect of having that dark energy until you brought it up. You know, and
Mm-hmm.
maybe you weren't thinking of the positive side
No, yeah, yeah,
of
exactly.
being a maniac. You know, so yeah, again, I think there's the whole reason why we're having this podcast. I don't want to sound like I know what I'm doing, you know, because I haven't a fucking clue what I'm doing, and I there's a lot of stuff that I have to learn, and there's a lot of stuff that I want to learn over the next couple of years, and I think having this podcast and having the social media and being able to grow in public is a cool thing, because again, it gets people involved and it gets ideas and concepts out there that maybe people wouldn't have necessarily thought about at the start. So
Yeah.
um yeah, again, I've kind of waffled on for about an hour. um I don't know if there's any more things we want to talk about. Maybe we could
No,
save them for
I
other
think that's
episodes,
great.
but
I think the aim of these two episodes is to, like I said at the start, provide a bit of context into, and maybe a bit of insight into our minds and how we kind of think. And I think with that knowledge, if you can then go and listen to the following episodes that we chat about other topics,
mm,
I think that'll kind of bring about a better understanding, and kind of you'll see why, say, I or you have a particular stance on a certain topic. And I think that's valuable. So yeah, you've done a good job of kind of explaining the way your mind works. And yeah, no, I'm looking forward to doing the same on my side now next week.
watch me lose a lot of friends now because they think I'm a psychopath. Like,
Yeah, you're a psycho mania.
oh well, is what it is. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. All right, we
um
wrap it up there. Episode 2 done in the book.
Mad. Just even saying that is great. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I know.
enjoyed
Yeah.
that one. Enjoyed that one.
Yeah, it's
A good
good.
chat.
Look, I think that's one of the main reasons as to why I want to start this as well. Is like I enjoy learning about people, and like I have a lot of respect for you and what you're doing and stuff. So I enjoy learning about you and understanding how your mind works. So anytime we get to hop on a call, whether it's recording a podcast or not, like I feel like you kind of like the microphone here in front of me, I kind of forgot was there for a little bit because you're just we're just having a
Honestly, me
conversation.
too,
Like we're
man.
just this is a conversation that you and me would be having if we were down on Portmarnock Beach, like having a coffee together, you know. So I think that's kind of one thing that is needs to like come across. Is this is just you and me having a chat, and like you said, I think it's really important that it's it comes across as like, and because it is the case that I haven't to fuck what I'm doing here, and I know like you're better tech than me, but in the sense of like going on this life's journey. I've no better idea about how to do life, or this is my first time doing life as well as yours. Like that, we have no better understanding than anybody else on this planet. But I think it's valuable if people can understand where other people are coming from, and then they can kind of maybe relate that or not relate that to their own story. And yeah, I think we need to just become more comfortable with having conversations with each other like this. You know?
100%. 100%. Well, yeah, episode 2 done. I don't know when we're going to do the next one, but the next one will be
Yeah.
Kieran's story, which I'm looking forward to. I know we've kind of gone deep into mine, so I'm looking forward to kind of going into
Yeah, buzzing.
in more depth into your story and learn about kind of how your brain works. So that'll be episode 3. We need to figure out a schedule again.
Yeah,
I'm meant
yeah,
to do these, but
yeah.
like we said, the growing pains are there. And yeah, we'll just gonna start and learn along the way. So yeah, episode 2. Thank you for listening, and
Yeah.
yeah, I guess we'll see you in the next one.
Love it. Love it.